In the quiet town of Marietta, Georgia, there's an old funeral home that locals cross the street to avoid. The sign above its iron gates has long since rusted away, but the building still stands, peeling paint, boarded windows, and a front door that never seems to stay locked. Ask anyone in town, and they'll tell you the same story. A funeral once began here, but it never ended. It was the spring of 1958, when the Peterson family gathered to bury their patriarch, Charles. He was a respected man, a factory foreman, and his funeral was supposed to be a dignified event. The mourners filled the chapel, candles flickering, organ music echoing under the vaulted ceiling. But something wasn't right. The service dragged on. The preacher repeated himself. The clock on the wall ticked forward, yet the sermon never moved past the opening words. Hours passed. The air grew heavy. Some guests claimed they couldn't move from their seats, as if an invisible weight pressed them down. When one man tried to leave, the double doors slammed shut on their own. No one could open them. That's when the whispers began. People swore they heard Charles's voice, murmuring from inside the coffin. Not a scream, not a moan, just a low, steady chant. Words no one could understand. The organist collapsed, clutching her ears. Candles blew out, though no wind was felt. And then, silence. When the lights came back, half the guests were gone. Their coats still draped over the pews, their shoes left behind. But their bodies vanished. Authorities searched for weeks. They found nothing. The building was shut down, the coffin buried in an unmarked grave. But stories spread like wildfire. And soon, locals began to notice something worse. Every year, on the anniversary of that funeral, the chapel doors would creak open by themselves. Candlelight flickered inside, though no one had entered. And from the street, if you stopped to listen, you could hear the organ playing that same endless hymn. Those who dared to step inside reported the same thing. Rows of mourners sitting in silence, faces pale, eyes glassy. When approached, they vanished into thin air. One teenager claimed he saw his grandmother among them, a woman who had gone missing decades earlier on the night of the Peterson funeral. The town tried everything, exorcisms, blessings, even demolishing the building. But each time, workers refused to continue. Tools disappeared, heavy machinery stalled. And by morning, the chapel looked untouched, as if no work had ever begun. Paranormal investigators eventually called it a loop, a haunting not bound to one spirit, but to the event itself. They say the Peterson funeral is still happening, trapped in time, forever repeating. Some believe Charles never really died, that his soul refused to leave, dragging the mourners with him into whatever limbo he created. Others whisper darker theories, that the preacher wasn't a preacher at all, but a cult leader, that he used the funeral to bind the living and the dead in one endless ceremony. In 1984, 2 college students decided to spend the night inside the chapel. They set up recorders and cameras. For the first few hours, nothing happened. But at midnight, the organ began to play. Their footage shows pews filling with shadowy figures, their outlines flickering like candlelight. The students panicked. One fled. The other stayed behind. He was never seen again. His camera was later found smashed, the tape inside warped beyond repair. Even now, truckers passing through Marietta report lights glowing inside the abandoned funeral home. Sometimes, they say, a procession of black-clad figures can be seen walking toward the gates. only to vanish before reaching the road. The scariest part? Some of those faces match old missing persons reports. Locals have a warning. If you hear the organ playing, don't go near. Because once you step inside, the funeral welcomes you, and no one who joins has ever left. So what really happened that spring night in 1958? Was Charles Peterson cursed? Was the preacher something more sinister? Or is the chapel itself a doorway, trapping anyone who enters in a never-ending wake? One thing is certain. The guests who sat down in those pews never came home. And each year, new ones seem to join. The town avoids it. The authorities ignore it. But if you ever find yourself in Marietta and the wind carries the faint sound of an organ through the night, remember this. Some funerals end with closure. But this one never ended. And maybe it never will. For more haunted tales and chilling mysteries, subscribe to Shadow Oath. And tell me, if you saw an open chapel door at night, would you step inside or keep walking?